Sure.
How do you feel that Crystal Stix deals with ADD and ADHD?
Well, Crystal Stix is an activity that requires participation on a minimum level. And if your attention drops below a certain level of attentiveness, the activity will cease. In other words, you'll drop the baton. So in that way, it's not forgiving. And the more you get into the activity, the more attentiveness is required. Attentive deficit disorder. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that you don't have any attention, or that your attention is somewhere else and not in the present? I think that what it is in most cases is an untrained mind who finds the activity of what's going on in the moment somewhat less than desirable and only wants to give it a certain amount of itself. But most importantly, it's an untrained mind. It's simply a mind that hasn't taught itself how to pay attention, what it really wants to pay attention to. We are composed of layers in the sense of our evolutionary past behind us is composed of layers, and one layer is grown up on top of the other layers. So developing ourselves means that we need to develop and integrate these layers and get them all to cooperate. A person suffering from ADD, which of course is the inability to pay attention to a continuous line of action of some sort, or pay attention to the action, or ADHD, in which case they can't pay attention to the action and they're hyper up all over the place. Those things have genetic roots. Perhaps it could be described in this way. Genetically, it was an eat or be eaten world every step of the way. That means when you start going very far back and you get beyond the civilized levels of humanity, and sometimes even there, you'll find it was pretty much of an eat or be eaten world. And we would have a propensity then to look around, and if something was scurrying around us, we would be looking to eat it, as well as us scurrying around and finding something else wanting to eat us. So early on, we started getting rewarded in the form of food if we were successful in making an action. So we were literally being trained by this desire for food to seek an action, seek a solution to a problem, which is to obtain food, and then get a reward in the form of the food and also in the form of a endorphin release, or an endorphic release then. So within our genetic structure, we're equipped to reward ourselves for successful actions. The Crystal Stick activity is a series of successful actions linked together. You both initiate an action, respond to what you did, and then you have to at the same time be thinking ahead and reinitiate an additional action and make it all come out smoothly. Because of that, a person who has difficulty paying attention to a line of action going on, they are engaging themselves in an activity that requires more and more attentiveness to be focused on the activity in order for the activity to happen. And this feedback that takes place literally is a developmental process, developing this neurological web work that includes the emotional components required in order to make it happen, as well as the mental focus components required to make it happen, in addition to the other physical actions required to make it happen. So those three elements then come together, and because they come together in such a fundamental fashion, it breeds this active desire to participate, and people who find it difficult to pay attention start to pay attention because it does bring together these three elements. And if a regimen of development, of course, is followed, then the results is far superior, because you're able to take that line of attentiveness and spread it around and make it more dynamic and integrate it and that sort of thing. The hyperactive portion of ADHD as opposed to ADD is handled because action is sort of like, I got so much energy in my body and I'm not using it all. I can't quite settle down. Now, there are several components to that, obviously, but one of those components has to do with literally dealing with the physical energy involved. The Crystal Stick activity eats up that energy, uses up that energy in a good fundamental fashion through this integrative process, and also rewarded there whenever you do these successful series of actions. You paid attention to this, you start to get that endorphin release, and the heart rate goes up. You get an increased metabolic rate, which is certainly a good caloric burn, and it's like a cathartic release then when done in abundance. And when you do it in exuberance, and of course you get more out of it. So the crystal stick activity feeds on itself, it grows, it compounds, and like any other thing that's woven through a series of actions, the crystal stick activity will give you benefits that come together over a period of time. The fundamental things required to do crystal sticks are such that a development takes place in an automatic fashion. And if a regimen, of course, is employed in the use of the crystal sticks, then all of that can be amplified and the benefits can be dramatically increased.
Prescription drugs have been used